Welcome back. I hope you are all feeling refreshed and are ready to continue with the lesson. Here we are going to look at the first concept, which is the definition of the word adaptation. And adaptation the term adapt means to fit or to adjust to. Okay? So it can also be defined as a change in structural, functional, and behavioral characteristics of organisms in a species. This is a process that takes place over many generations. Adaptation over time also allows species to survive in response to changing conditions in the environment. We will later see how this happens. So species that are unable to adapt to changes within the environment become extinct or die out. And this is usually based on natural factors. We also did ask in our Did You Know question if you know that nature chooses who survives and who does not survive. Remember that it is species or populations of organisms that adapt, not the individual organisms. So alongside here, we have a diagram showing rock formations inside the Kango Caves located in the Western Cape. And these show that they were once underwater. Okay, so basically here we see an example of adaptation. So when Southern Africa rose out of the sea millions of years ago, we must take note that we were not here to experience it. So it's something we are told about, and there's evidence that this is something that happened. Organisms that could not adapt to the new, drier terrestrial environment became extinct, but individuals that could adapt survived and formed new populations. These adaptations could be changes in organisms' structure, function, and behavior over a long period of time. Only populations of organisms that happen to have suitable characteristics are able to survive in changing conditions within an environment. They are selected by nature to survive. Those species do not adapt and will die out or become extinct. So if you struggle to adapt to the new environment, chances are that organism will become extinct. Okay. So adaptation is a slow process, like we saw in the previous slide and picture, that it's something that happens over generations and can happen over a period of millions of years. It is a gradual change in the characteristics of an organism, enabling them to improve in order to survive in a changing environment. This increases the chance of survival and reproduction so that species continue to exist. And here we have an example of a butterfly. So if you look at this butterfly, you will see this butterfly has features that look like little eyes, and these are usually to scare away or scare off predators. And basically this allows this butterfly to live a little longer. Next, we are going to be looking at adaptation types, focusing on the three types, namely the structural, functional, and behavioral adaptations. So these are the three ways in which living organisms can adapt to an environment. As we have said, adaptation in species can occur in three ways. Firstly, we have structural adaptation. So here we are focusing on the physical characteristics of a species. Okay, an example, we have ostriches. They have strong toes and leg muscles to help them run fast. We also have functional adaptation. These are characteristics that organisms are born with, which means that these are not learned. For example, we have penguins and birds that have wings, but birds use their wings to fly, the birds that we see in the air, whereas penguins have adapted their wings to swim. And then a third adaptation is behavioral adaptation. This focuses on the behavior that animals do in responding to the change in the environment. So we can think of many desert animals that go around during the day to avoid the hot sun. During the night, they come out to feed. So here we can also think about how you also have owls in the desert, and we know that owls are nocturnal animals, meaning that they rest during the days and they feed in the evenings. We are also going to look at examples of adaptations. Here we are looking at bears and we are looking at camels. Animals have different adaptations which have enabled different species to live and function in different areas. Let us have a look at some of the animals that live in extreme environments and how they adapt. Here we are basically comparing an animal that lives in a cold area and one that lives in a very hot area, namely bears and camels. Okay, so camels have the following adaptations that allow them to live and survive in deserts. They have long eyelashes to keep sand out of their eyes. This is a structural adaptation. They have thick eyebrows to shield the eyes from the sun. This is another structural adaptation. It is a physical characteristic that is found on the camel. And then they have nostrils that can close so sand does not get into their noses. This is a functional adaptation. They also have humps that can store fat, which is broken down for energy. Remember, they walk through the desert for long distances, so they don't come across food, so they convert that fat into energy. They also have feet that are broad and flat so that they do not sink into the sand, the desert sand. This is a structural adaptation. Now we look at polar bears. Polar bears have the following adaptations to help them live and survive in the Arctic. We know that the Arctic is a very cold area. So as you can see, you can identify a bear by the thick fur that they have. So they have fur on the soles of their feet to grip ice and insulation. Insulation is basically another word for keeping warm. They also have small ears to prevent loss of heat in the cold area that they live in. They also have strong legs so that they can run and swim when they catch their prey. They have thick layer of blubber, which is like a fat layer underneath their skin for insulation against the cold. And this helps keep them warm. They also have white fur to camouflage themselves for when they hunt food. And basically that is the last adaptation of bears. Let us take a short break and we will see you shortly.